Hey everybody, it's Carson Gourdie from Fox, Illinois, the Champaign sports anchor. I'm joined with my friend Jared Parker over in Pennsylvania. He covers the Penn State football team. I'm just going to get right into it. A lot of Illinois fans, they were excited after beating Nebraska, and then they look at the point spread a couple days later, and they're 18-point underdogs to Penn State. I mean, Vegas is kind of saying this is outside the margin of error. They're expecting a big Penn State victory. What was your reaction when you saw that big point spread?
Well, Carson, thanks for having me. And I have to say, I was a little bit shocked to see that. Obviously, Penn State, very good team. They've looked good in the last couple weeks. I know last week they set the all-time record for offensive yardage. But I was shocked because Illinois, they played Kansas, underdog against Kansas, beat Kansas, and then to come into Nebraska and win like that, win in overtime, it shows that they're a team who has what it takes against the top dogs. So to see an 18-point spread, I wasn't surprised to see Penn State favorite, of course, but 18 points is a lot, especially the way Illinois has been playing. And I wouldn't be surprised if Illinois covered that spread.
It is like, just to put it into context, like if Penn State wins 31-14, they didn't cover. And that's still a huge victory. Yeah, I would just say that about Illinois. I mean, I thought they came out against Kansas. That was a game they were 6-point underdogs. They won. Nebraska last week was a crazy environment. That was Nebraska's 400th consecutive sellout. And Illinois did trade blow for blow. Like we've seen throughout Brett Bielema's tenure, especially during these road games, like he doesn't really lose by double digits often. The game I think about a lot was 2022. Illinois was on a bad 2-game losing streak. They go into Ann Arbor to play Michigan on their senior day. Michigan's undefeated. They're 17-point favorites. And Illinois lost on a last-second field goal. So I don't think Illinois is going to be intimidated by Penn State in this environment. But I will say the Nittany Lions have a really good football team. I mean, it does seem like Drew Aller has taken the next step as a quarterback. I know you guys got a couple good wide receivers now. Your running game is really good. So, what have you just kind of seen from this offense? Because, Penn State got a new offensive coordinator this year, and it
Right.
seems like it's working so far.
Definitely under Andy Kotelnicki, the offense has changed. What I've noticed most is obviously like between Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, their freshman year last year, they've always been guys that are going to develop and produce at a high level. That's not surprising to me. But what really is impressive is how they've been able to just distribute the ball to so many different guys. Like in week one, it was Harrison Wallace. In week two, it was Tyler Warren. And then again last week, Tyler Warren having a big day. Omari Evans at the wideout spot. He's made some really big plays. And even last week, Julian Fleming getting his first big touch after transferring from Ohio State. So I've noticed a lot more balance within this team. It seemed like last year, and this is something James Franklin talks about a lot. He doesn't want defenses to be able to game plan for one or two guys, which seemed like teams were able to do that last year. Now it's like last week they had 8 different touchdown scorers. You got a game plan for a lot of teams. And for Illinois, you come into this saying, I feel like Penn State has given Illinois a lot of different looks where you can't necessarily rule out anyone, even at the quarterback position. Bo Prabula, who's technically the backup, he's come in and played a lot of, game time competitive ball when the score is close. So even at the quarterback position, you can't game plan just for one guy. And Prabula was thought more of a runner last year, but he's thrown the ball a bit more this year. So you also have to worry about that. The only thing I am worried about with Penn State is with them opening up the offense more. We've seen Aller take some more risks. We've seen Prabula take some more risks. And that Illinois secondary is on point. They know how to hurt you when you make a mistake.
That's been a huge improvement for Illinois because last year's defense, the big red flag was the secondary. I mean, they were giving up 300 passing yards a game. The interceptions really went down. I mean, Miles Scott, Xavier Scott. I mean, these guys are ball hawks. I mean, so far, I would say, especially late in the game against Nebraska, I mean, Dylan Raiola finally looked like a freshman. I would just say with Illinois, I think not as big of a question mark, but, coming into this year, they lost 2 NFL defensive linemen. And, they gave up a lot of rushing yards to Kansas. Nebraska, they played a lot better. They stopped that running game, but it does seem like Penn State is another
Early,
beast.
but it's always been their identity. They're gonna live by establishing the run, and they're gonna die by it. And I'd be shocked if they didn't attempt to do that against Illinois Saturday.
And I know you guys got a new defensive coordinator. For people in the Big Ten, everybody knows about Tom Allen. He's the former Indiana head coach. He used to have some pretty funny statements. It didn't work out as a head coach in Indiana. Like almost everybody that coaches at Indiana, they eventually get fired. But it does seem like he still knows defensive ball. Like, do you ever see him at like these media availabilities? Like, does he bring a certain energy to this defense? And just what do you like about that unit so far?
Well, I could say as far as Allen, that guy, he's a quote machine. I mean, he's full of quotes. I love talking to him. Like he's never at a loss for words. He always has something to say. As far as like on the sidelines, what I see this last weekend, he called plays from the box. That was his first time doing that this season. First 2 weeks he was on the field. But even pregame, just the energy he brings, it's kind of continuing the tradition of Penn State having a great defense because the offense year in, year out has fluctuated, but we've always known the defense to be Penn State's selling point. If they're going to win, it's going to be by their defense. And he's brought a lot of energy. I will say the defense has looked a bit different at first. Like, I think with Bowling Green, it was a bit concerning because they put up some big plays, but then Bowling Green goes and plays Texas A&M, and it's like, okay, maybe we were wrong about Bowling Green, not Penn State. It could be that Bowling Green has a great team. But I like what I've seen so far. I like Abdul Carter at D line, coming off the edge instead of as a linebacker. I think he's had a little bit of growing pains just with penalties and whatnot, especially pre-snap penalties. But as he continues to grow, last week he was able to get a sack. I think he could be a serious risk there, especially when they start dropping him into coverage and just giving a bunch of different looks for opposing teams' offenses. So I could definitely see this Penn State defense maybe not being as dominant as they were last year, but being similarly dominant.
But what I do know is Penn State over the last couple years hasn't really slept on Big Ten opponents. Like, do you think Penn State is going to not sleep on a number 19 ranked Illinois team?
Penn State, they're absolutely, and they won't say it. James Franklin doesn't like to say these things. But from my assumption, from what I evaluate, they are not sleeping at all. Like they're ready to play. They see this as a big game. And like you said, they've only lost to the Ohio States, the Michigans of the world. So coming into this, I don't think you can possibly sleep on Illinois after watching what they've done in the last 4 weeks. Illinois is not going to be perhaps like a Kent State or a Bowling Green that feels like, we're the underdogs. Maybe we have to come out, strike early, play a game we're not used to playing. Illinois, at this point, Illinois shouldn't be scared of anybody because they've already been underdogs twice and gotten it done. This is a bit of a step up, but it's like knowing the confidence this team has to have. You could argue they've had the best 4 weeks in college football right now. Knowing the confidence that team has, you can't possibly sleep on an Illinois team that looks like they do. And I think with some of James Franklin's comments, we definitely see he's not sleeping on them.
No, Illinois is the only team in the country that can say they've beaten two ranked teams. I mean, that is something, this Illinois football program since 1994, they've had a lot of rough moments. I mean, Brett Bielema has definitely elevated the program to a different level. Going into the preseason, we always hear about every year Penn State has the big whiteout game, right? Like sometimes it's Ohio State, sometimes it's Iowa. Well, with this Big Ten schedule, it was weird because their Ohio State game is going to be big noon. So they had to pick somebody else. They took the Washington Huskies. I think in hindsight, maybe they do pick Illinois to be the whiteout game if they knew 2020 hindsight. And, James Franklin, this obviously got a lot of media buzz. He says they want whiteout energy, even though not everybody's going to wear white. And Brett Bielema said, whatever the hell that means. And that went all over social media. They think that Brett Bielema is being disrespectful. If you listen to the full comment, Brett Bielema goes on to say Penn State has great iconic uniforms, intelligent fans, great stadium. But of course, that 5-second clip got taken. Just overall, do you think Penn State fans, is that true bulletin material? Is that going to motivate the team, or do you think that comment's going to be brushed aside?
I do think it'll be some bulletin board material because what we've heard from James Franklin, he doesn't show them everything, but he has confirmed to us that that is a practice they do participate in. So I definitely do think, and what one thing he said about that too is he'll have the TVs going, he'll have the newspapers going, but he doesn't show everything. And he had this conversation with their star safety, KJ Winston. And Winston asked, he's like, how come you show us this, but you don't want us on social media? And he said, Franklin said it's because he can control what they see. So I'd almost, not be surprised that, okay, he might be controlling what they see and take this clip and show them you know, what Billy has said to give them some bulletin board material. I'm not sure that that's exactly what he's doing, but I do know it's a practice among the Nittany Lions.
It's regardless. I think it's gonna be a crazy crowd. I mean, it's a night game,
Absolutely.
ranked versus ranked. Like, do you think it's gonna be like checkered? Do you think some people are gonna wear white shirts or some people are gonna wear blue? Like, what are you kind of thinking?
I'm going to take an early guess and say 80% white. That's what I'm gonna say. Because I mean, the fans, they love a whiteout. So giving them an excuse to have, a second pre-whiteout, which this game actually, who knows, could be more intense than the actual whiteout come November against Washington. I think we're gonna get a good amount of white in there. And it's definitely gonna be whiteout energy. Anytime you can get a ranked primetime opponent at your home stadium, fans are going to be, bouncing all night. So I think 80% white is going to be my preliminary prediction.
And obviously, Penn State, over the past 10 years has been a great program. They would have been in the playoff a lot if this 12 team has been around in the
Yeah.
past. But it does seem like a game against Illinois. Penn State's got to win this if they want to be comfortably in the 12 team playoff.
There's the fans aren't taking any excuses now. Before, with four-team playoffs, it was you had to win your conference to be in. And even with FSU, that's not completely all the way true. But now it's like 12 teams. Like you said, the past couple years, 12-team playoff, and Penn State would have been comfortably in. Now there's no excuse. And with a game like Illinois, you definitely have to win because they've only got Ohio State. They don't have Michigan this year. So, if they're a two-loss team, you could argue that there's other better two-loss teams that had a more competitive schedule. Obviously, a lot has to unfold. That Washington game, for example, we have to see how that is. We don't know where USC will end, but I don't think fans are going to be happy with any loss, but definitely anything outside of Ohio State is going to be looked at as a pretty big failure. Can you talk about Illinois' mentality to be able to go in as underdogs twice already this season, go into Nebraska, like we said earlier, very tough environment to play in and have success in a tough environment like that?
Illinois this year, I mean, every player, they're like a robot. You try to ask them about a couple weeks down the road, you try to ask them about the rankings. They say, nope, we take it one play at a time, doesn't matter. So I think that's been encouraging for Illinois fans is that they're focused on the mission and they are talented. And if you look at Brett Bielema over the past 4 years, they don't lose a lot of big blowouts. Like they're not losing 31-0. They're not losing 24-0. Illinois played a lot of close one possession games. I brought it up to you earlier. In 2022, they came into undefeated Michigan, who was 11-0, and they lost in a last-second field goal. Hate to tell Penn State fans this, but in 2021, Illinois was a 28-point underdog. They came in and shocked Penn State in that crazy 9 overtime game.
Yeah.
So I don't think Illinois is going to be intimidated. I think if Penn State wins, it's maybe just because they have more 4 stars and they're just a very good football program. But I would not expect Illinois to just roll over on Saturday.
All right. Thank you, Carson.
Don't miss a video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel today for more Central Illinois news.